Don't you worry, I have not forgotten about Mexico City, and I'm just going to be referring to her as Talala instead of her full name because I don't want to get flamed in the comments for mispronouncing her name every time that I mention her, but she is kind of an odd servant to get on Raid Up. Because while you could use this servant as an AoE quick looper, and she'll do okay, I suppose. I mean, like I've said in the past, pretty much every servant that releases nowadays is gonna be able to loop in some capacity. We just have a better quality of servant than we did, years ago. But in my experience using her, the area that she's really gonna shine is either in, say, like a multi-core type of party because of how her NP works, or using her as some kind of challenge quest tackler. Again, you could use her on our own, but I just don't think you're really getting the maximum value out of this servant. And obviously, like all the other videos, we're going to break down this servant skill by skill, go through all of those and explain what they do and kind of give you my final take on the servant. So if you enjoy these daily FGO videos, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as it is absolutely free and helps me out more than you know. But with all that being said, let's start yapping and dive right into her kit, starting off with her hits over here, which she's got some okay ones. Particularly, her quick cards are fairly powerful at 4 hits a pop, and her art cards are okay at 3 a pop with 0.58% NP gain backing them up. Again, nothing super insane, but it will allow her to get some nice refund on those crits. She obviously is rocking that omnipotent 5-hit extra attack, because if you're not in the know, the extra attack is a composite card that gen stars NP and does big boy damage. And over here on the ZTL channel, that 5-hit standard is what we like to see. You can go ahead and start upgrading that append skill if you want to make it even more omnipotent. But I also wanted to take a chance to look at some of her passive skills because it gives a hint to what we're going to be seeing with this servant. So for one, the refund and her damage on her arts cards is going to be a little bit better than you're expecting because of her massive territory creation buff, giving her a passive 12% arts buff, which is increasing the damage of her arts cards and the NP gain of her arts cards. But most notably, look at Waterside Business A+. It is giving a 20% crit damage buff when you're on a waterside battlefield. So that does give a little bit of a hint to what this character is going to be revolving around, and that is being on waterside battlefield. But fret not, if we look at her first skill, one of the effects you can see on this one is that she has a 500% chance, basically guaranteeing that she's going to be able to give herself the waterside battlefield buff for 3 turns, and also give herself a 30% battery, and then on top of that, 10% NP every single turn for 3 turns on a 6-turn cooldown. So with the context of the passive skill, this is why I think she's particularly good in challenge quests, because her crits can actually be pretty good considering that she is a quick servant with pretty decent star gen. She will always ensure that there are going to be stars in rotation, and so she will be able to output some pretty nice crits. But if you want to use her as a looping servant, not only is that 30% battery going to be very nice, especially if you're doing kind of the standard quick thing of, say, starting off with a kaleidoscope, you could pop this immediately, get to 100%, essentially have a free wave, and then you're getting that extra 10% every single turn. So maybe if you only refund 40%, technically you're back at 50, the other Scotty can give you a 50% battery, and you're absolutely good to go. It can also synergize rather well with 50% starting charge CEs, because you can go for the 20% append plus her 30% battery, and that immediately lets you fire your NP immediately, while you could take advantage of some of the 50% starting charge CEs that might give you a little bit of extra NP gain, maybe some NP damage or a quick buff, whatever is really striking your fancy. So again, very powerful first skill. I think it plays nice for whatever you want to use her for, whatever that be farming, or you want to use her as a CQ servant. It's just going to be good all around. Moving into her second skill, this is why I think she is a rather good support type servant and can shine really well going into CQs, because she gives the entire party 20% attack for 3 turns, 20% crit damage for 3 turns, and gives the entire party pierce evasion for 3 turns while removing all enemies' guts abilities. And if she removes their guts, she lowers their defense by 50% for 3 turns. Now, that might be a little bit more rare. In one of the gameplays, I did take her to go fight the 1 million HP Galatea because she's super effective against her, and Galatea does have a chance to use her guts, so we can kind of show off this massive damage she's able to get. Unfortunately, it's not really something you're going to be able to proc in, say, farming nodes, so this big extra damage buff is kind of locked behind only being able to be used in, say, like advanced quests, challenge quests, boss fights, thing along those lines, and again, only if the enemy is going to be rocking a guts. But when it does come up, it's going to be rather useful. The only unfortunate unfortunate thing is that sometimes guts tend to be unremovable for some bosses, like you just physically have to chew through them, they're not removable in any way. And that is a little bit of a detriment for her, but again, this is still a strong charisma if you take away this additional removing of the guts as more of a bonus effect, and you just look at the other things. 20% attack, 40% crit damage for herself, because again, with the first skill up, you have the water side 20% crit damage buff, and allowing everybody to get around dodges. That's just really nice, because even if the dodges are unremovable, Pierce Evasion still gets around it. So again, just a nice utility thing to have in your Chaldea, assuming that you pull a couple copies of her while either going for Kukulkan or going for Tez. This is something to keep a note of in the back of your head, is you do have something that can offer you a very strong attack buff and some decent crit damage, while also allowing you to get around annoying dodges. Maybe you can think of her kind of like, say, a Santa Nightingale in that way, where you break her out every now and again just for this skill alone. And then finally, we have what I would say is her offensive skill. This is kind of completing her kit, giving her 30% quick, arts, and crit damage for 3 turns, as well as party-wide 2k damage cut for 3 attacks for 3 turns on a 6-turn cooldown. Remember that arts buff is really at 42% because of her passive, and her true crit damage is going to be at 70%, which is not bad as long as you have the waterside battlefield buff from her first skill. And again, there's nothing too insane going on with her kit, it's just very well rounded, giving the party a little bit of tankiness, giving them a nice little offensive buff, letting them crit just a little bit harder, and if the enemy is using dodge, it allows you to get around that, and she's also kinda self-sufficient with her first skill having her own battery and giving herself NP every single turn. If there's something that I would change, I would maybe say that on her first skill, not only could she have the 30% battery, but you could make the NP every single turn for the entire party, and then you could also probably give her a star regeneration buff, because even though she's a quick servant, if you're kind of using her as a pseudo-offensive support type servant, having a way to take the burden off of either her or one of your other servants to gen all the stars could make things a little bit more smooth going into challenge quests. But with her being a servant that's on every single banner, and not, I would say, relatively hard to pull, because I'm assuming you're going for a multitude of summons on either one of these raid ups that she's going to be on, because hey, you're either going for Tets or Cuckoo, they're both insanely broken, you're going to be going deep on the banners. You can mitigate some of her damage issues on her NP by just pulling a couple of extra copies, which I know sounds like, oh, just pull better, you know? But again, this is the Cuckoo and the Tets banner we're talking about, so you're going to be going all in on those. I guess looking at her NP though, one thing that I would change is kind of how this operates, because the base effects are very strong. She gives herself 20% NP gain when she's on Waterside Battlefield to help you with refunding, whether that be in CQs or going in to a farming node, and do keep in mind, this will apply to the face cards that go after the NP, so say you do a quick chain, your quick cards are going to be getting a flat 20% NP gain buff just because you popped the first skill. The entire party is going to be stacking 20% NP damage every single turn for 3 turns, so if you fire 3 of these in a row, everybody gets 60% NP damage, which is rather strong, and then she herself is getting a 20% NP damage buff for 1 turn that can go all the way up to 40% if you have overcharge effects. What I would change about this is that you have to allow her to stack the NP gain rate on her NP, just make it NP gain for 20% for 3 turns, that way every time she fires an NP, her looping gets better and better, and then you could also additionally make her overcharge effect for 3 turns as well. Just allow her to stack NP damage as well, because her base damage isn't the greatest at NP1. Again, kinda can be offset by the fact that they put her on a very high banner where you're probably gonna pull a couple of copies of her. I think on my JP I have her at like, what, NP2 or 3, because I did go a little hard on the Kukulkan banner. But again, some people are going to get really lucky. They're going to pull Kukulkan or Tets in like 1 or 2 tickets. They're going to be real lucky ducks, and then they're not going to have these additional copies of Tlaloc over here. And I think she kind of suffers for that. But then again, she is on every single banner because she's not story locked or limited, so maybe they're banking on you pulling additional copies to kind of make up for her lackluster damage. Overall, I think she is a rather solid servant. I do think she gets kind of a bad rap online for a lot of people that are really into the meta for FGO, because if you're looking for a definitive quick looper or a challenge quest killer, she's really not going to be that, especially when compared to a lot of the other quick AoE servants that we have. But if you're someone that has only, say, Ryder Astolfo as your only quick AoE unit, then this is definitely going to be a significant upgrade, because not only are they fairly self-sufficient on their own and will be able to get by with a Ruler Scotty or some combination of a friend Ruler Scotty plus your own caster Scotty, and I don't know, maybe insert a Oberon that you could plug suit in, or a Nero Bride even for extra NP gain. while also having the ability to support the party with decent offensive buffs, a nice little technical option in being able to remove guts and give everybody pierce evasion, with some bonus tankiness from the damage cut which never hurt. She will be a rather solid option into your Chaldea, but is she worth rolling for on her own merits? I would say absolutely not. You know, if you really like Tlaloc, there is no problem in going on one of these banners to try and grab yourself a couple of copies. I too am a major fan of her second ascension. I think it goes absolutely hard, but am I going to be summoning on these banners for her alone? Absolutely not. I would be summoning on either Tets or Kukulkan depending on who I wanted more, and hoping to get some copies of her, but not going on the banner specifically for her. You know, it's more prioritizing which 5-star thing is going to benefit me more, and then Tlaloc over here is more of a consolation prize. You know, however many copies I get, if I get NP5, that's fantastic. If I only get 1 or 2, well, at least she's in my collection. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I know this is a little bit shorter than some of the other ones, but she is a rather straightforward servant, kind of a support DPS that maybe you could bring into some of your multi-core setups, because again, with the append skill and the first skill, you can fire her NP off of a 50% starting charge CE, and she is going to be giving everybody, at the very least, an attack buff and an NP damage buff. And if things come down to face cards, well, she also gave you an additional 20% crit damage buff, and that's always going to be very useful. And I think that's where she's going to shine in a lot of people's boxes. Again, don't let me, you know, have this video come out here and tell you that you can't use your Tlaloc as your farmer. Again, with enough effort, you could really make anybody loop. I mean, we even got Saber Nero to loop, and she only has 1 hit on her NP. So with enough supports and enough just fat NP batteries being poured into a servant, you can get anybody to do some 3-turn farming. By the power of K-Scope even, you can get it done. She's not nearly that bad, as she does actually have hits on her NP to get the job done, but I wouldn't be expecting any miracles. Again, if you do only have somebody like, say, Ryder Astolfo as your AoE quick servant, this is a significant upgrade, but say you already have someone like Senno Rikyu, then you're probably not going to get an opportunity to use her very much unless you just really happen to like Tlaloc. So once again, if you enjoyed the video, found it informative or entertaining, I would appreciate a like on the video and a subscription to the channel, as it does help me out more than you know. If you want to see me play FGO live, or maybe even some other games, I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting at about 6 to 7 p.m. Central Time, and I also have my Twitch down in the description down below if you'd like to watch over there, as I do multi-stream. The Discord is also in the description down below if you would like to try to chat with other people that play FGO or other gacha games, as we do have people that are known to branch out from FGO into, say, some Dragon Ball, Bleach, Arknights, even if they want to get a little freaky. And finally, there's the Patreon down in the description down below, where actually I'm going to be trying to release some more videos over there. One of them is actually going to be cooked up in one of the following days, as we kind of talked about one of them on stream. So if you would like to go that extra mile in supporting the channel, that will be there in the description down below, but do not feel pressured that like you have to go down to the Patreon. It is just for people that want to go that extra mile and support the channel. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice one, and I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace, late guys.